Welcome back to Dis to Digital, where we talk about the evolution of gaming, media, and take a look at some of the classics that shape today's modern title. As always, I'm your host, Brett Clark, and joined with me is the lovely Mr. Matt Keaton. Matt, how you doing today?
How's it going? I'm doing great, doing fantastic this morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good myself. Liking the setup there. I like the mug too. Although I'm almost out of orange juice here. So.
Yeah, sipping on the coffee this morning, get me going,
Yep. There have been a lot of technical issues with getting video up on YouTube. I think I finally got it all worked out. So don't be surprised if there is no video on YouTube, because that's just been my luck. But if it is, this is the first time we'll be on video. So I say that every time, but something always goes wrong.
Yeah.
Anyways, speaking of things going wrong, we actually had something go right earlier this week. Fans, for those of you who don't know, me and Matt actually were in a 2v2 Call of Duty event, and we actually won. It's called the UGC, or the Ultimate Gaming Championship, and it's hosted by Team Avalon. It was like a 2v2 Warzone event, and we just were invited to it, and we were just like, why not? And we had a great time with it. It was a lot of fun. Matt, what was your experience on it?
Oh, I had a blast. First time I've ever done anything like that live for anything at stake. I had a great time. It was nice. It was fun to be competitive. It was nice to have something to play for and a reason to be playing Call of Duty, not just playing casual. And yeah, I loved it. I loved competing. I loved trying to push and have an incentive to do so. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah. You also debuted the Twitch channel. And did you also do Facebook gaming, or did you just do Twitch?
I just did Twitch for the debut. So
What was your experience on that?
It wasn't that bad. I mean, thanks to your feedback helping out there. It was a lot of fun. It's something I'm passionate about, something I want to start doing, kind of putting myself out there. And just I was getting kind of starved at the end of that, so I had to order food, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
I know I was snacking on stream. I apologize if anyone took offense to that, but I had to eat. I hadn't eaten all day, and it was like 10:30. I'm like, man, I got to eat something. So, but yeah.
The streamer woes.
Yeah, I had a great time. I love doing it. I love just being able to play and share. And, as you get a little older, you get more comfortable with yourself and your image and what you're trying to do, so you're just like, whatever, I'm just gonna share it with the world, and whatever happens. So it was a blast. The streaming part of it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've been streaming for years, and I'll say the hardest thing is finding when to eat on stream. And like, not just like, oh gosh, I haven't eaten for 4 hours, here's a burrito, and just because then you're doing that in front of the world.
Yeah,
you're just devouring your food.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed with the fact that you were able to survive as long as you could without sustenance.
Yeah, well, and the thing about it too is, for me as a viewer, personally, watching other people stream, I don't have a problem with somebody eating, because it's just a natural thing that you need to do. Like if you're taking a sip, or you're eating something. I mean, as long as you're not like face gorging right on the middle of the camera, and you're like dripping grease, and you're just like, As long as you're respectful about it and trying to kind of hide it a little bit, it's okay, and it's natural. It's what we need to do to sustain our body, so it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I think the worst experience I've ever had was I ate a baked potato on stream.
Oh,
and I hit the plate and I dropped baked potato all over myself playing Pokemon Let's Go. So I got like sour cream inside my Switch controller and everything.
Oh no! Did it survive that?
Yeah, I still have it, but it's like, I know there's sour cream still in that thing.
Yeah.
Like deep down inside, like on the circuit board. I know somewhere it's in there. Which is why I don't use it anymore, like to play Mario Kart, because when there's Mario Kart on the line, you don't want the sour cream controller.
Yeah, no.
I pawn it off to whoever I'm feeling like giving it to that week. But no, I'm glad that you had a lot of fun with that. I mean, now with the UGC having that Call of Duty event, we now hold the title, and apparently there's a rule where every month you have to put the title on the line. And in doing so, like, me and Matt were thinking, like, do we want to do another Call of Duty event? And because we could choose any game. And so we're just sitting playing some NES Classic, and we're trying to figure out this game, and we for the longest could not determine like what to play at all. Like, I don't know, I mean, we still really haven't even really determined a game that we wanted to replace it with. But like, a long story short, like, going back to try to find a game that everyone can play. It was super hard in my
Mhm.
personal opinion.
Mhm.
But as we're playing like Tecmo Bowl, we're like, why don't we just make a Tecmo Bowl? Why don't we just do something like that? Why don't we just make it a vintage game, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know what your experience was with that when we were determining, because we were just talking like on Discord when that happened. But playing Tecmo Bowl and playing like Nintendo Hockey, going back to those titles, like trying to play those in a competitive manner,
Mhm.
like I could see it honestly.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was, more than 20 years ago playing these titles for the first time since then. And Tecmo Bowl, I played that as a kid religiously. That was my bread and butter. That was my 5 hours a night sitting there playing Tecmo Bowl. And playing it online on the Switch, it's kind of different because obviously back then you just had the pad with the two buttons and your movement was restricted to the D-pad, and now is with
Mhm.
it being on the Switch online, you have analog sticks. And I'm trying to remember the two button combination of what drops back to pass and what does tackle, and how do
Mhm.
you switch off and what are the movements. And for me, it was a nostalgia factor that came rushing back to me. Being able to play online and having that idea come to us like, hey, a light bulb, hey, let's use this as a competitive way to defend our titles instead of
Mhm.
playing something like Call of Duty where, not everybody's into it. And when we talk about it excessively, it kind of gets exhaustive. So I think we found a great niche genre to defend our titles with. And when we were doing that, I had a blast. I
Mhm.
playing Tecmo Bowl, seeing the graphics and having it all kind of flood back and how to play. And you were super competitive, so it was nice to play against somebody who was trying to win and not trying to necessarily just cheese it up and just or
Mhm.
play casual. You were actually trying to win. So you
Well,
know,
I mean that's the point of a sports game. You make it
yeah,
sound like I'm sitting there like
yeah.
being cheap.
No, 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 no. I said you weren't. I
Yeah.
said you were being
Oh, okay.
competitive and you weren't
Okay.
being cheap or like cheesy and just cheesing it. You were actually trying to win. And that's refreshing because that's the beauty of sports titles is you
Yeah.
play to win. And
Mhm.
so it makes it more competitive and you have to try your best to do it. And I know I was able to eke out that victory over you on
Oh
Tecmo
gosh.
Bowl, but I got to give you credit at the same time. You kicked my
Yeah.
butt in NHL hockey. That was rough.
Yeah.
That
Speaking of the Tecmo Bowl game in particular, like
Mhm,
it's something I've always struggled with
mm,
Tecmo Bowl.
mhm,
Like I don't know football really well, so it's like running play, passing play.
mhm,
Like 95% of the time, I'm gonna pass it, and
mhm,
that's just because like I don't know what formations do what. So I'm used to Tecmo Bowl where you just run 20 yards back, just chuck the ball as fast as you can.
mhm,
So even in like modern day Maddens, like comparatively, that's still what I do. I normally run the ball most of the time.
okay.
But like I had like 2 or 3 interceptions on you, and you still won. You won? Didn't you get a safety or something like that
Oh,
too?
it was like the one of the original drives.
Oh,
I was going to the end zone and I dropped back to throw, and you picked it off in the end zone, but you ran out of bounds, and the game called that a safety.
oh yeah, because it's not a touchback.
So
That's
it
what it
gave me
was.
two additional points, which was weird.
And then the ball right back. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
like it was awkward for sure.
Yeah, it was there's some bugs in that game
Yeah.
where it's like weird. The other thing is like interceptions in that game. Let me just point this out.
Mhm.
Like I swear anytime a guy was anywhere near your dude,
Mhm.
interception.
Mhm.
But then like for me, I don't know what it is with Tecmo Bowl, but I can just squeeze that in there.
Mhm.
Like 0% pass. And it's always the last quarter where it
Mhm.
just stops working. It's like, "What?" And it's like interception, and I'm like, well, thanks, game. Way to not work for like the fifth time in a row.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's the pass
but
prediction. You have to, you know, me going in knowing that you were a passer and you ran very rarely.
yeah,
And I was just predicting you were going to use one of the two bottom pass plays. And
yeah,
whenever you would get overloaded and sacked is because it's a correct guess on the play.
yeah.
So you were able to fool me quite a bit. But I do remember you when I first draw back to run, you're like, who runs in Tech Mobile? That was
Yeah, exactly.
hilarious.
You're not even the Raiders. You're not even playing as Bo Jackson, and I'm like, you're running, and I just see this guy go and like pitch it back on the like flea flicker or whatever. I'm like, what? You're not even the Raiders. You're not
San
even playing as Bo
Francisco was
Jackson.
my
No one
team.
runs without Bo Jackson.
Yeah, San Francisco was my team in Tecmo Bowl. I don't know why. It's because of being a kid. I was born in California, and I had
Oh,
like
yeah.
this relation to, for some reason, San Francisco over most sports teams. So like the Giants and MLB, and
Mhm.
the 49ers in football were my team. So
As you're wearing a Packers jersey right now.
yeah, and then we moved to Wisconsin, and I grew up, and I learned what football was, and really what it
Learn
was
what team
all
is
about.
better.
And I learned, I'm watching the early '90s, 1994 Brett Favre, and it's been
Oh,
Packers
yeah.
ever since, baby. Day one, Favre stepping in for old Don
Mikowski.
Majkowski, and
Yep.
just whoo, ever since it's been Packers.
Yeah, I'll say this: watching Brett Favre play, like, and me being named Brett, I'm not named after Brett Favre, named after Brett Hall, hockey player, hockey family. But watching Brett Favre play, like, it was so fun to watch him, just the excitement and the love of the game. And then
Mhm.
you play as him in Tecmo Bowl, and and for some odd reason, he could just still squeeze in Tecmo Bowl, probably because his stats were super OP. But I loved him in Tecmo Bowl until he became like a Viking. Like, and then I was like, oh, nah, I forget that. Kind of dead to me there a little bit, but we won't talk about that too much. Um, Still love him. Still love Favre.
Mhm.
But the in Tecmo Bowl, the original one, because like I never played Super Tecmo Bowl. I only
Mhm.
played like Tecmo Bowl 3 on the SNES, and then Tecmo Bowl with you, which is the one before Tecmo Super Bowl.
Mhm.
Uh, I always played as the Chicago Bears,
Mhm.
and it's not because like I have anything for the Chicago Bears. It's just that they were really basic. They were kind of like user friendly because
Mhm.
like I would play as I think it was the Giant. No, not the Giants. Might have been the Patriots or something like that. But they had like an amazing uh, like this Terry guy, or whatever. He's just an amazing TL,
Mhm.
and I'm like, yeah, that's great, but I can't use any of these other guys on this team because I have no idea who these guys are, and that was kind of my issue. Where Chicago is kind of like flat skill set,
Yeah,
you know?
well, and they didn't have licensing rights. They just had city names and likenesses. There was no
Yeah.
numbers on jerseys and things like that. It was just like straight their take on football. And,
Hmm.
they didn't have Green Bay in the original Tecmo Bowl, and they didn't
Which
really have, and I never played any of the others. They just had like Chicago, Dallas, I think like San Francisco, Oakland, just basic teams.
hmm
It was just a basic representation of the NFL, but it was one that was definitely a classic sports title for sure.
hmm You played just the Tecmo Bowl original.
Yeah, just the original. I've never played anything
Oh,
ever after that.
you
I
and
went
I should play Tecmo Bowl 3
okay.
and do creative characters. Me and my dad played Tecmo Bowl 3 growing up, and recently I got him like an emulator, and I went over there and I made a creative character, and I
Mhm.
made D's Nuts as my character's name. So you just got D's Nuts passing for like 200 yards and stuff like that in the games. And my dad's like, what the? He's like, what the hell? I'm like, dude, I put his passing accuracy and passing speed up to 100. Guy was slow as concrete and like molasses,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
he'd get it in there.
Yeah,
And
we
it's
should
just
we
great to
should
see
check that
D's
out.
Nuts every time
That's
at the
funny.
line.
We should
Yeah.
check that out for sure.
Yeah.
But
Did you
yeah,
ever play
then
Blades of Steel growing up?
no, never played Blades of Steel.
Oh my gosh. I'm afraid to play that with you because I value our friendship. Um, Oh, dude, Blades of Steel is so dirty. It
Mm,
was like a lot of people consider that Blades of Steel by Konami to be the best like hockey game on the Nintendo.
mm,
But we played Nintendo Ice Hockey, which I think is better.
mhm,
But the Blades of Steel was an arcade game originally,
mhm.
and like because it's an arcade game, it was kind of buggy back in the day. So if you pass the puck multiple times, it'd be like it's a pass, it's a pass.
Mhm.
And I
Annoying.
was talking to my hockey team about Nintendo Ice Hockey, and people were like, "What about Blades of Steel?" And the first thing everyone talked about was, "But it's a pass." Like it's just the first thing that came up when
Mhm.
Blades of Steel got brought up. So I didn't know if you played that growing up or not.
Yeah, no.
The audio glitch out, man. Everyone knows about it.
Yeah, the Nintendo Hockey was my first that we played,
Oh,
and then
really?
I just went straight to the NHL franchise. Same with
Mhm.
Tecmo Bowl. Excuse me. That was my first football game, and then I went straight from that to John Madden '95.
Oh yeah.
and I've played every Madden ever since, and I've never kind of looked back. However, interesting note that we're talking about retro games, even though it's more of a modern era bygone, is the NFL 2K franchise. That
Oh yeah.
was the Madden dominator. That they had so much potential to overthrow Madden in the sports,
Mhm.
football, sports, video gaming. And then just couldn't get it done. But I switched from Tecmo Bowl to Madden to NFL 2K, and then NFL 2K they kind of lost their licensing, and EA became this Madden empire juggernaut that they became, and then I switched back and just continued the trend. But ironically, the little quick shout out that we're talking about this. I haven't played this year's Madden. I boycotted it and I haven't played
Mhm.
it because I saw of all of these copy and paste stuff that they did, and they just haven't really touched it in a few years. So honestly, I just gave up with Madden, and I just said, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy football as a fan watching it instead of trying to play it. So
Mhm. Yeah, the that's kind of been my big thing with like NHL over the couple of years. Like Nintendo Ice Hockey was like you could be good at that game, but the game has mechanics in it that balance it out really well
hmm
with like the skinny guys, the fat guys, and the normal guys. Like they all specialize in one thing, and like skinny guys like are fast but like shoot really weak, and then fat guys crush you and shoot really strong but are slow,
hmm
and are really bad at face-offs. So in that way, the mechanics are really balanced. But as you go further and further, like NHL,
hmm
like NHL 06, NHL '07. Like you're getting into the Ovechkin Crosby years,
hmm
and if you don't have Ovechkin Crosby, like there's no point of you playing the game. Ovechkin's a 97, like
hmm
rating out of a 99, so he's literally 2 points away from being 99. Guy's accuracy is ridiculously off the charts,
hmm
like, and as you keep on going further and further and further into these series, like stats matter more and more,
hmm
and they haven't improved the mechanics of the game enough. They haven't improved the AI enough,
hmm
where it's like I can literally like hold the stick out all the way to the right, and a defenseman will skate right past me.
hmm
And it's like, why is that happening? And you're on the receiving side of that. You see the guy sticking out a stick, so you're like, oh, my defenseman will slide to cover my position if I go to attack him.
hmm
And no, my defenseman never comes out, and the guy goes right past me, and now he's on a breakaway. And that's kind of where, for me, I'm at the point where it's like, there's there's a reason I buy it,
hmm
like not year after year, but I buy it like every 3 4 years, and it's because they introduce something like pond hockey and stuff like that. But
Oh, okay.
I feel cheated every time because it's like I go to play the core game and it's just like, you guys
mm,
haven't done anything,
yeah.
you know, or brought it over to PC, which I'm still very upset about. Bring over NHL to PC, and I will never complain about it. I'd play it, but they don't. They don't ever bring it over.
Yeah, for me with hockey, I was a Detroit Red Wings fan. Don't get mad at me for that.
My
And
dad would be very mad at you for that.
yeah, it's just something about the Red Wings and they're just like classy hockey. They're just
Classy.
classy.
Classy hockey. They
Cl-
buy Stanley Cups. They're worse than the Yankees. Get
they
out
were
of here.
they were like the classic hockey image. I mean, how many championships they were in or a part of,
They
or
bought them all.
yeah, I don't know.
They
Just
would
for
just
me,
buy veteran players. I'm just saying,
no,
as
it's
a
okay.
hockey
It's
fan, I'm
okay. It's
hating.
cool. It's cool. I loved like watching Lindstrom and Iserman and just
Oh,
it
Yzerman,
was
you're a Yzerman fan too. My dad would hate you so much. My dad hates Steve Yzerman. He knocked the Blues out of the Stanley Cup, or not, yeah, out of the playoffs from that stupid shot from like the top of the circle.
sorry,
Steve
Dad.
Yzerman,
Did
gosh, he hates that man
didn't
so
mean to
much.
upset your dad there, but yeah. So for
Yeah.
me, the hockey games, original EA hockey games, and then throughout the years, I'd pick them up and play them. I had a lot of fun. My favorite thing was to just get the puck and just take off, and I love the intuitive controls of doing shots. And then for
Oh yeah.
me, it was kind of difficult when they went to the shot stick, like everything. You use the right
Oh yeah.
thumbstick. I prefer just a classic button approach
Button.
to the hockey, and
Same.
obviously, I think the most notorious button and the most favorite button of hockey fans in video games is the triangle button, the deke. Just going and checking somebody, hitting them, and is a lot of fun.
Yep.
Hockey, I loved the physicality of it in the games, and I remember I forgot which NHL it was, but the first one where they actually introduced you could break the glass on the side and
Oh,
just
yeah.
like check a guy right through the wall. It was just something about that, the physical and the violence of the sport, and it was just like, you know, hockey back then wasn't that mainstream for people in my area, and kind of like we really just weren't into hockey. I mean, Milwaukee has a is a minor league hockey team, the Milwaukee Admirals, but there's no NHL presence there. There's a minor
Mhm.
league presence. So growing up as a kid, I thought Admirals were big time, and then I thought they were big league because I went to some games as a kid, and then
Yeah.
I boot up NHL, and I'm like, oh, where's Milwaukee?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
It's
it
because of
wasn't
stupid
until
Chicago.
yeah, and it wasn't until the later games where they had the Admirals in there listed as like an affiliate for Nashville, so that was really cool. But
Yep.
yeah, growing up as a kid, hockey and Tecmo Bowl and NHL hockey were just like the two staples. That, and for some reason we're not talking about this today, but NASCAR was big for me too growing
Oh
up.
gosh. The before I get back into hockey, NASCAR, we had like this little thing in gym class where you could like be on your elliptical bike, and
Mhm.
as fast as you'd pedal is as fast as your car would go. I unplugged that little bike part and just held the A button on the thing, and people are going, "Damn, he's so fast!" And I'm just sitting there pedaling like nothing, holding the A button on the control. I'm like, "Yeah, get out of here, Jeff Gordon all day, baby."
Yeah, Jeff Gordon all day. He was like my
Yeah.
idol. I love Jeff Gordon. I had, but I left it in Wisconsin. I gave it to someone, but I had a Jeff Gordon actual jacket, and I
Oh,
was
that's cool.
proud of that thing too. It was his actual replica NASCAR jacket.
Oh, that's
Until
cool.
an old man in Walmart's like, "Hey, son, are they paying you to sponsor that jacket?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, why the heck are you wearing it?" And he just made me feel really stupid for not
Oh,
for being like a Jeff Gordon fan, and he was probably a Rusty Wallace fan or something, you know. But
oh,
anyways, he made me feel
salty.
real stupid, so I like stopped wearing it in public, and then it
Oh,
just kind of like, you know, it went out. But it was cool. It was one of my
yeah.
favorite sports collectibles and like memorabilia, and I get to wear it everywhere and be proud until that moment. So
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That some guy ruined it for you.
yeah. Well, I was a teenager and I was
Oh, yeah.
impressionable, and you know, some old man's calling you a buffoon for wearing something. It's just kind of like whatever, you know.
Yeah, I get you. The for me, as far as like hockey memorabilia, like I just wore jerseys all the time, like
Hmm.
you know. But this one sticks with me, and this is Nathan Eggenberger. If you're out there, this still sticks to me to this day. He was my forensics partner in 8th grade, and we won state. Me, him, and Asher, and all three of us played Call of Duty all the time. I think I talked about that earlier in a different podcast. But I got my varsity jersey, everything for hockey, and it was like red and green,
Hmm.
and it was the middle of September. He's like, it's a little early for Christmas, and I'm like, wow, just because it's red and green. He's like, yeah. He's like, why are you wearing red and green, man? I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, I never thought of that. And he just was ripping on the fact that it was Christmas colors, and I'm like,
Oh,
it's the Minnesota Wilds jersey.
yeah,
But I felt so stupid. I know exactly what you're talking about. Still
yeah.
sticks with me to this day whenever I look at it. I'm like, ah, it's not Christmas time. um, which is why I go to be a Rangers fan now, because it's always time for American red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
Um, just saying. But no, with hockey and all those sports games going back to Nintendo Hockey,
Hmm.
you're right. I think the two button, the pass shoot, you
Hmm.
know, you hit guys. I think is a very basic concept,
Hmm.
but once you included the skill stick, it was kind of cool. It's also kind of finicky because for me, I played with the skill stick right away because I liked it. It felt kind of like more I was controlling the character.
Hmm.
But my buddy Asher I'd play with all the time NHL, and he would use the button to shoot, like the A
Hmm.
button, and he would just snipe it. And I'm sitting here like, how are you able to snipe that? But it's because he didn't have to manually control down to shoot and then up to like do a certain type of shot.
Hmm.
He was able to like dink it in and control it better. And I'm like, it's a little cheap. It was a little cheap. It's like aim assist, like you know, it's like
Yeah.
a little too helpful. But I do admit that like the skill stick is nice. It feels
Hmm.
good, but that that shoot, that pass dedicated button where you just press and it does it, that's really, I think, convenient as well. Like it's hard to choose between the two. It's like, do you control it entirely yourself, or do you let it be arcadey and fun? I
Hmm.
think, and that's what I like about that. NHL gives you the option to choose either.
That's nice because most modern sports titles don't really give you those options. They just thrust their new control scheme on you and they expect you to pick it up and play it. And that's like if you talk about the evolution of sports titles, you talk about the controls is the number one thing. It goes
Hmm.
from Tecmo Bowl and NHL, two buttons do the same things depending on the situation in the game. And then you play the games now, and for a novice going into any sports games now, people are shy from them. They don't like them. They poo-poo them because when you try to you do something, every button on the controller has a mechanic now, and it's hard
Hmm.
for people to get into that. I think they need to offer more of those classic options for people to just say, hey, I'm a noob, I'm a casual, I just want to just step in and just play it. And I think that's where like modern gaming now has these accessibilities for handicapped people, and
Hmm.
they should have it not just for handicapped people that don't have the ability of all of their digits to play, but they should also do something for people who just want to take a casual approach to sports. And
Hmm.
one franchise that's always done that is MLB The Show. Sony San Diego, they have always done the simplistic approach to baseball, and it's really easy to pick up and play. Anybody can play it, anybody can just pick it up and learn it really easy. But games like Madden are just ridiculously hard to pick up and play if you don't know, if you haven't played them. And same with NHL too. The modern games are kind of overwhelming to learn, especially when it comes to the shot stick, because it does so many, that intuitive stiff thumbstick does so many different things,
Hmm.
and it's the movements on it you really have to learn, and it takes time. But it is what it is, and they market towards being competitive and being
Hmm.
super hyper. Every button does every little thing, and it's difficult. And even for me, going back to Madden, I can't, I can't get all of the buttons down, learn everything. And it feels like no matter what you do, you drop back to pass. Unrealistically, Rodgers, I'm throwing 6 interceptions a game, and Aaron Rodgers maybe has 1 interception per game in real life. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like it takes the fun out of it for me.
Yeah. I think with like where you're talking about, where it's like it's getting hyper, almost realistic.
Hmm.
For me, like I played hockey growing up, like, and I'm not by any means like the best player to walk the face of the earth, but I'm pretty comparable. Like, like I understand what I'm doing.
Hmm.
And the issue for me is that I know playing NHL, the worst position I play is defense. And that has been my position I've played my entire life. And the reason is because gap control. I cannot gauge gap control in NHL as good as I can in real life. Now that just might be like a visual thing because like when I see a guy, I can actually like tell depth. But there's no way to softly control my when I'm skating backwards. I can't softly control skating backwards. I can't close that gap.
Hmm.
It's either I'm skating backwards or I'm stopped. Like there's no way to like finally control that gap so I can let the guy approach and encroach and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And for me, I find hockey extremely difficult for things like that, where it's like I know in real life if I dump it here and I'm going to the corner, if I could let that guy take half a step forward in front of me, I can cut behind him and then come back up the boards. Whereas in NHL, it's like you go to do that, you try to cut behind the guy, you're going like 90 degrees towards the net, and the guy's
Hmm.
got the puck and's already out of his zone. And that's kind of the one thing for me where it's like as hyper realistic as they try to make the game, there are things where as someone who plays the game in real life, like I just can't grasp, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh for instance, stick handling. Like I know how to like protect the puck. I know how to like cradle it to the outside.
Hmm.
Well, in that game, that's the A button. But you can also do that with the skill stick. Now with the skill stick, you can also control your skill stick so you can cup the puck or toe
Hmm.
drag and stuff like that as well, and then deke out of it.
Hmm.
Why are you giving me 6 different ways to control the puck?
Hmm.
It's if I just hold the A button, that's fine. That should kind of just be the one way to do it, in my personal opinion. But
Hmm.
then you've got deke stick and all this other stuff, and it's like I would rather learn how to do it in real life than have to relearn it in a video game.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I don't know. For me personally, it's just I find NHL extremely, extremely difficult compared to real life. You know,
Hmm.
uh, I will say this: in NHL, I do shoot much faster than I do in real life. You know, guys at like 90 miles an hour shot. He's way more accurate than I am in real life.
Mhm.
But when it comes to like gap control and like position play, much more difficult.
Hmm.
That's the other thing with like games like FIFA, where it's like in FIFA, I don't necessarily want to go full send into this like towards this guy. I want to be able to like get to him, lay off so I can like follow him. But you have limited control, so your guy's like a robot, like going 90 degrees a certain way. It's
Mhm.
I don't know. It just could be me. It just could be me. It could be that I got really wonky left thumbs and can't
No, it's the
get delay.
animations. They don't accommodate for micro movements or micro adjustments. And that's one thing that upsets me about Madden is as much as you use the juke stick and you have all these little fine refinements you can do, they don't have fine-tuned controls for being able to stop and turn or like slow down. You have to actually just let off and just get tackled, and it's difficult because in
Mhm.
real life when you're a running back and you're making those micro adjustments with your feet, that's the most important part of it that is lost in translation.
Yeah.
You know, you can't make a micromanagement move with your feet and go the other way as cleanly, as crisply as you can in real life, or shift your momentum. And it's all due to the motion capture. And I know what you're talking about with FIFA because that used to drive me nuts.
Mhm.
You to pull off and to like regroup and circle around and pass to another guy, it was just awkward. It's not, the game like wants you to push forward and dive in and
Mhm.
hit that. They want you to score. Basically, it's is what it is.
Yeah. I know with games like Madden, like if a guy's coming at you to tackle you, this is something you never experience in Tecmo Bowl. If you like press the hit stick down, you can like go under like a tackle and like you can break out of it. Or if like a guy's coming low, you can like hit up on the stick so you like have your body weight go up. So there's a potential that he'll like get your leg, but you can like high step over him. And in hockey, they don't even give you that option. It's you either are hit, you're either hip checked, or you rub your butt against the guy and the guy just bumps right around you and is on a breakaway, you know?
Mm, yeah.
But in Tecmo Bowl, it's tackle or tackle, be tackled or like jump over the tackle. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that was kind of the cool thing about it was that you never had this like micro mini game in it
Hmm.
where you could
Hmm.
like avoid this tackle. It was just like kind of like a chance thing. And I kind of like that about
Hmm.
Tecmo Bowl, whereas like it was really arcadey, you know,
Very
and now
simplistic.
everything seems more like a simulation.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And I
Yeah.
buy these games not to simulate because there's no way I would survive actual football if I was a running back. I would get crushed. I would get destroyed. I just know it. I mean, gosh, I had a bad enough time with lacrosse, being a
Mm.
short guy, being a midfielder, and there's like 6 foot tall kids with 6 foot long poles smacking the crap out of you. They're just walking with you and they're able to smack you. Imagine football where a guy's got like 200 pounds on me. I'd just be a pancake. That's why I like Tecmo Bowl, man. Didn't matter.
Yeah, it's simplistic. It's not meant to be simulation of real life, and
Mhm.
I like what they've done with future sports titles or more current sports titles where they've added a playground mode like NBA. I
Yep.
love basketball, but it's something about watching it on TV. It's just kind of lost in translation versus actually being able to go out and play it. When I was a younger teenager, we used to just go out and play basketball all the time till the sun went down, and then the park didn't have lights, so if the sun went down and we couldn't see, we had to go inside. So, it was a lot of fun, but then watching it was not that much fun. Excuse me.
Mhm.
Playing the NBA franchises, the NBA Live and then 2K, that was really fun because they added these like outside like playground modes to the game. And I think most sports titles now, Madden's got like the yard or something that they've added.
Yeah.
And it adds like depth to it, and you can kind of relive that childhood of going back and playing 3v3 with your buddies or whatever. um but yeah, going back to talking about our experience with the Tecmo Bowl and hockey, that was a lot of fun. We just casually on the fly picked it up, and I'm sitting on the couch next to my wife with talking on Discord, playing the Switch online with you, and it was fun to play. It's obviously infinitely more fun against a live player. The
Yeah.
computer, it's not as fun because you can easily predict what they're going to do, and you can kind of cheese them and run up the score. But playing a live player, it's all gloves, all bets are off. The gloves come
Mhm.
off. You've got a live person who's capable, knows what they're doing. And see, for me, I always played the computer. I never had the couch co-op buddies until like Madden came along. And then when
Mhm.
Madden came along, I was the hot spot on the block. Everybody was over at my house 24/7, practically living there. We were always playing Madden, or I was going over to a buddy's to do it. And my childhood friend Bo and I, we used to just kill each other in Madden every other game. It's all we played nonstop. And that was all that nostalgia from playing sports games with my best friends growing up, and everything just came flooding back in one simple little experience playing NES Online on the Switch with
Mhm.
Tecmo Bowl. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about it, and I had a blast, man. Let's do it again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm always down to play Tecmo Bowl and ice hockey just because, exactly like you said, like that
Mhm,
nostalgia coming back. That was what I grew up with. I just played with my dad, and it was one of those things where that was all I ever needed in a sports game. And then
mhm.
NHL came along, and it's like, well, it's more realistic. But there's nothing that quite tops original Nintendo hockey for me. Just the simplicity of it and how fair it is.
Mhm.
I mean, Bo Jackson on Super Tecmo Bowl's like broken. But apart
Yeah.
from that, Tecmo Bowl, you less plays, less stuff you had to manage. You could just play the game and have fun.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I liked about it. And so I'm always down to replay those games. Um, but I think on that note, unless you have anything to say, I think we've reached the save point, if you'd agree.
Save point it is. Let's do it.
All right. So on this week's save point, Matt, we
Mhm.
actually got two comments coming into us. One from the website, which I'm very happy about, and another
Nice.
coming to us from a direct message on Facebook. So you ready to hear this?
Absolutely.
All right. So Jay would like to know, what is your favorite video game franchise?
Mm, that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
That's a tough one. Favorite video game franchise? I think I've mentioned a couple different ones because it's kind of hard. You can't just pick one. You can't really.
I said favorite video game franchise.
Favorite video game franchise. Let's revise that. Let's go. Mm, well, maybe not. Let's just be simple about it. I think I mentioned Assassin's Creed was probably my favorite video game franchise.
Okay,
So
I
I
respect
gotta.
that.
I know we were talking about sports titles today. I was gonna go sports, but I'm like, I'll be fair.
Hmm.
I think Assassin's Creed for me by far favorite.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I think might be my personal favorite franchise. I mean,
I like this because it's live and we're kind of like, oh,
ooh,
we're recording this and then you're throwing a curveball and it's like,
yeah, I gotta think about it. Yeah,
hmm.
Jay, what a tough question. I see. I want to say like the Lego franchise, honestly, but I don't play enough Lego games. But I did, as a kid, live for the Lego games because like you get Lego Harry Potter, you got Lego Star Wars, Lego Indiana Jones, and I played all of them. Like I grew up on Lego games.
Hmm.
I don't play them too much anymore, but I did buy Lego Star Wars Force Awakens to play
Hmm.
with a friend of mine. That
That was
might
a
be.
great entry.
Oh, you know what? Battlefront, the Battlefront franchise.
Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars Battlefront right there. Yeah, that's probably my favorite franchise. Battlefront 1, Battlefront 2, and even the new revamp Battlefront 1 and the Battlefront 2, the revamps. Battlefront might be my favorite franchise. It's like the hidden gem for me. Like I don't really tell too many people about that, but it is my favorite franchise now that I think about it. Just the
Okay.
DLC alone for Rogue One just made it. Just made that entire game. Ray tracing, phenomenal. The graphics were off the charts on Battlefront 2.
Hmm. Okay.
Controls, campaign, fantastic. Battlefront 2, check it out. A lot of people rip on it, but I love it. I love the franchise. You did not expect that one, did you?
No, I didn't.
No,
Kind
yeah.
of making me want to reinstall it. I've got both games on the PlayStation.
I have it on the PlayStation as well. We could play. I don't like it as much on PlayStation as I do on Xbox. Not Xbox, on PC.
Oh, at PC. Okay.
There, even though it's my favorite franchise, there is one complaint: the sniper rifle. That's a one-hit kill. you don't get till like super late in the
Oh,
sniper
yeah.
queue. Yeah, it really sucked because you're like hitting a guy, he's like, "Ugh," and then he shoots you once, and you're like, oh come on. And you look at
Okay.
the guy, he's like level 1,000. He's got
Yeah,
7 years
I
on the
didn't. I
game.
wasn't a fan of the tier progression, but I enjoyed the nostalgia,
Yeah.
and I liked the iconic where they added the heroes, where you could play as the
Oh
favorite heroes or villains. And I remember my first experience. I think I played the beta, and you're
yeah. Mhm.
grabbing guys by the throat as Darth Vader. That was really cool. That was really fun.
I always played as Boba Fetty Wap, man. Dude, I love Boba Fett. Dude, he's the coolest guy in all of Star Wars.
Yeah,
Like,
for
I don't
sure.
care what you say. I love Boba Fett. Uh, moving on from that topic because I don't want to get lost too much in Star Wars. Uh, Thomas said, I listened to the first 2 podcasts today. There are a lot of good content. It made me realize a similar thing happens with music. I look forward to buying a full CD since you could find some good gems that wouldn't make it on the radio. But now it's much harder to find places that sell CDs. I always like the artwork and feel of physical media, and I feel the same way about games. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you, Thomas, for that comment. That was really, we do appreciate that a lot. That was really nice of you to say.
Absolutely.
Um, as far as music CDs go, I used to work at Best Buy, and now that I hear it from the customer side of things, I feel a little bad that I used to rip on people who bought physical CDs at Best Buy. Because someone would ask you like, "Do you have the CD?" And if you worked at Best Buy, you were like, "Oh, let me pull it up," because you got like a billion CDs in Best Buy,
hmm
and you have no idea because you're like, "Who uses CDs anymore?" Blah blah blah. But now that I
hmm
hear it from someone else, I'm like, I feel really bad now.
Well,
I
I
would,
mean, you don't really have to. It's you just you don't understand it, and
yeah, I didn't.
I didn't really understand it either. I worked
Yeah.
at Best Buy too, and my wife worked there a little bit longer than I did, and she actually frequented our store. I remember you were originally at Store 25 there,
Yep.
and she worked at Store 25 as a merchandiser, and so that all she did, she was the media guru. She would go to her, she knew where a music CD was, what section it should be in, she knew where all the movies were, she laid out everything. She did a great job, and she was really unappreciated at that store. Just gotta say, gotta be
Mhm.
honest. But the I learned from her that the music CD thing was being phased out, and
Mhm.
it's just like you kind of understand why, because of iTunes and the digital era and MP3s and stuff like that. But for me, I always loved CDs. I mean, I still went to Musical Round there in Wisconsin on
Oh
up
yeah.
on 76th Street there, and I always purchased CDs. I had a huge fat binder that was like my music bible, and it was
Mhm.
just I flip through. It was something about the collectible side of it that for me it was big to just flip through, and I had all these CDs, different genres, different, artists, and it was a fun way. I would even go and like alphabetize them and everything, so I knew right where they were. And trying to take a car trip across country or going somewhere fun, and you got to like flip through 100 pages just to
Yep.
get to one CD. But yeah, see, and then I started dabbling with making my own CDs and everything, and like making my own playlists and things like that, and burning them on CD. That was fun. That was a lot
Mhm.
of fun. Nostalgia, just my own compilation of different types of music. So I can see how it could be kind of painful for a lot of people who like to do that, and
Mhm.
then it is just there's no longer an outlet that you can go and pick those up from.
Yep.
Now it's just exclusively online, and you have to have it shipped to you. But most things don't come with a CD player anymore. I mean,
Mhm.
computers, you unless if you build your own, you can put a ROM in, but most computers, they're going away from that, and it's just it's a lost. It's kind of like the newspaper, if
Mhm.
you could say it's a lost art form, and it's a lost platform delivery that's just unappreciated because of the digital era.
Mhm.
Kids growing up nowadays will never understand vinyl records or CDs. They just
Mhm.
they what's that?
I used to think the same thing about vinyl. Like, I used to think vinyl was something that not a lot of people would do, or it's like the hipsters. My sister started getting into vinyl. My sister's the ultimate hipster, I feel. Uh, and I'm like, what, vinyl? Really? And vinyl does sound really
Oh,
nice.
you
Like, I've
can't.
listened to it myself,
hmm
but it's not something where, for me personally, I would go back and do it. Because, like, I think when it comes to music, versus video games, music isn't my
Mhm.
passion, but video games are.
Mhm.
So I have to look at it from the perspective that music is someone else's video games to me, you know?
Yeah.
And so I really understand where he comes from in this, where it's like when you go to a place that sells CDs, you sometimes go in looking for a particular CD and come out with 3 or 4 different ones you never intended to just based off of the artwork or the draw, or you never knew that they released this album.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the downside to it, is that with CDs, there's so much music now and there's so much independent music, just like indie games for video games, you
Mhm.
know. And they're the difference between independent music and independent video games is that you can release an independent track or an independent album that has 12 songs on it, whereas an indie developer can normally release just one game, you know. And in the digital space, like there's the same, obviously, but that CD has 12 different songs. So you have 12 different songs on iTunes, 12 different songs on SoundCloud, and all that stuff. There's just much more music, you know. And I think when people look to inventory that stuff, I think these retail places, these physical storefronts go, I don't want to have to inventory all of that, you know.
Mhm.
Where a
Mhm.
video game, they can do limited run releases and stuff like that. I think that's the reason why we're seeing music CDs in particular get phased out, is because there's so much of it, you know. Same thing with
Yeah.
video games. There's a
Well,
lot of video games, but I think per song, there's obviously more songs than video games in the world, I think.
that's a great point. I also think it's that, and I think the fact that it's all based on one aspect. Vehicles stopped installing CD drives,
That's a valid
and I
point, yeah.
think that is the number one thing. Growing up, when you first start driving and you start driving around, you're listening to music because you need that like stimulation. So
Mhm,
the cars stopped installing CD players in them, and then they switched over to MP3 with the aux cord. And it's like that. Once they did that, the CD niche, it became a niche, and then like it just became, well, I've got a CD player at home, so I've got my stuff at home. But there was something about when you had a CD player in your car, and picking up your friend to go do something, and you pull out your CD cases. You got a couple of them that you brought with for your trip,
mhm,
and your friends looking at it and like, oh, this is dope, and all this stuff. And that there was something about that, like being able to show it off and share it with friends and have that physically. And now it's just plug in your device or Bluetooth. Your
mhm,
device is auto recognized, and it's like, you got an infinite library to scroll through. And I think that, the travel industry changing up how they do that with the CD player in the cars, which, it's just it's odd choice. But I think after that, and when MP3s became ever prevalent, and you could get your music online easier, faster than having to go to the store and purchase it. I think that's when you talk about physical versus digital, we could have added music in there too.
mhm,
That's something that I think killed the actual physical collection of CDs. And I think I it's just my opinion. I don't want to offend anyone, but I think vinyl collecting is something that's just for someone's self-esteem and status quo. I don't really think that people actually collect vinyls, especially the younger crowds. I don't think they do that, and they actually appreciate what a vinyl record is and what it sounds like, and what the actual engineering that goes into it. I think they just do that for like a collector's standpoint. And uh, you know, people that are a little bit older really do appreciate that because that's what they grew up with and they understand it. But I think as a whole for vinyl collecting, and it's just whatever. It's
mhm,
I don't have any. I appreciate the music. My mom had a record player, two of them actually. One was an
mhm,
old like Victorian looking one where we wound it up, and it was really cool. But like for me, I can't speak to it necessarily and then collect it and like lord it over it because I've never had it. I
mhm,
never had that drive to collect those. But yeah, going back to the point real quick, just to finish it off for me is that once they stopped making CDs necessary and the digital era took over, CD production went out the window. And it was
mhm,
sad working at Best Buy and seeing the music department.
yeah,
After my wife left that store, the music department went downhill. The video department went downhill. They downsized,
mhm.
landscaped everything, and then there was no more need for media. It was just, I think the same thing's happening with movies too, honestly.
Yeah, I think streaming's killing it, honestly.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because you have everything. So you have an unlimited digital library. One of the things I will say with like vinyl though, like there are two sets of people. Like you said, I think there are people who collect it because it's like kind of like a status thing. But there are people that I know who
Mhm.
were kind of like me, where you appreciate the manufacturing that goes into it, the sound. You like the flaws you like the crackle, you like the static, because that's how it should be heard, quote unquote. I don't
Mhm.
necessarily like care that much between a long play versus like an MP3 version of it. Like there is a difference though. You can definitely tell a difference on a
Mhm.
vinyl. But I think it comes down to convenience, and it comes down to why you're listening to it, like how you are intending to listen to it. If you're listening to it just to like pass the time and to enjoy the song, I think either platform's fine. But when you look at something like that, I appreciate vinyl for its machinery, for its like design. It's very
Mhm.
similar to people who appreciate cars. Um, but I
Mhm.
sometimes feel like people in the younger crowd, they collect it because it's like the hipster thing to do.
Mhm.
And I think necessarily using the word hipster is not necessarily a bad thing, because I mean I shoot an analog for film cameras, so like technically I'm a hipster in that way. But you get these hipsters who are really just posers. I think the term hipster is a term for it's a negative term in
Mhm.
most people's eyes, and I think the term you're really looking for is a poser.
Mhm.
Someone who collects that just to pose as something else. So
Mhm.
I don't want to necessarily because you said you don't want to offend anybody. I want to defend your statement and say I think the term you're looking for is you are hating on posers who
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
collect it to show it off but don't actually appreciate it. Just kind of
Yeah.
want to defend you there. Before people come into the comments with pitchforks. um,
Oh, that's what it is, baby. It's just somebody's opinion. But
yeah, no. As a hipster, I do understand where you're coming from. Posers, we hate posers in the film camera world. We hate
mhm.
posers. Those are the people who get their analog film developed at Walmart and Walgreens. If you're doing it in a black room yourself, you're legit. That's what I'll say. Um,
That speaks to my heart because my mom was a huge like processor of photographs for Brightlow Studios in Milwaukee way back in the day.
mhm,
And my mom also worked in photo finishing, where she was in the back end in the dark room
mhm,
developing everything. And I'm surprised I didn't follow that path, because she was just that was her thing. She loved doing it, and she did it for decades. Made extra money on the sides as well. So, but yeah, that it's the old ways of media is definitely a lost art form, and it's unfortunate to see. But
yeah.
and then you talk about versus how it is now with media, and everything's at the tip of your fingers, waiting for you to stream. And I think the one thing that upsets me about that is the fact that they have total control over it, and they can charge whatever they want for it,
Mhm,
and it makes people download stuff if and torrent it and pirate things, because you can't afford it, or you figure, well, why should I pay for it if I can just get it for free? And I think that's where piracy killed part of it too, is because
mhm,
everybody was just, instead of going out and buying the physical stuff, they just went out and downloaded it instead. And I mean, I did that as a teenager. I downloaded things, and I'm like, well, screw this. I'm not paying for it. But
mhm,
then, as you get older, you start to appreciate the business side of it, and the manufacturing and the love that went into it. And it's kind of come full circle. You're looking for that. Oh, can I get that back in my life? And then it's not there anymore. You can't go. You have to go to a niche collector store.
mhm,
And that's why I went to Second and Charles. I shot you that screenshot of that place here in Houston. They have a massive vinyl record collection that's like a storefront,
mhm,
mixed with like books and video games. And they have a huge nostalgia movie section where it's like bigger than a Best Buy ever could have been for both of those platforms. And it's nice to go back and look and scroll through all that stuff. So,
mhm. Yeah, it's kind of funny because sometimes like to close up the save point, because this is going really long. Sometimes like vintage gaming stuff, there's a point where it's old enough that it's like worthless and you
mhm.
can buy it super cheap. But then it gets so old that it's just a fortune. Like for instance, GameCube. If you think about it, it's not that old. but
Mhm.
they're super expensive right now because for some people that is their vintage games. Those
Mhm.
are the nostalgia games for them,
Mhm.
and it's just capitalizing on that. But if you go to like Sega games, those games are super cheap, older, but same thing with NES games. Some NES games are ridiculously expensive, and
Mhm.
but the most of them, for majority of them, they're pretty cheap. But then GameCube's ridiculously more expensive, and it's just like it's kind of a weird thing with being a vintage gamer or an old school gamer is that like you have to ride the wave sometimes with popularity of certain titles and
Mhm.
genres, and same thing with music and other things. Sometimes you just happen to like, for instance, someone might have died, so like all of their albums are worth way more now.
Mhm.
It's things like that where the disc to digital world is very like up and down. It's not a straight line of when stuff will be popular, stuff will be valuable, or this is the time to buy. You've got to ride it, and just
Mhm.
accept it for what it is.
Yeah.
You got to ride the boat, baby.
Well, and that's what leads to our last topic here for
Mhm.
this podcast, in which you talk about retro games online. That's what makes people go to these different platforms. Like
Mhm.
when you introduced me into playing retro games online, you gave me the information where to go get things, and like when I downloaded RetroArch and installed it, I have no clue as
Mhm.
to what I'm doing. There's a lot of network setup that's involved. I I'm still lost. I've watched tutorials and I've done all this stuff. And, when you sent me those files and things to play, it's like I still can't figure out how to link them to the platform to play them, and then let alone trying to get it online.
Mhm.
I was able to get one, which was Jackal. I
Mhm.
was able to play that, but other than that, it's the emulator issues aside, it's just really difficult to get that set up, and it takes somebody with a lot more skill who knows what they're doing for sure, to be able to do that. And I'm sure you have a point to share about that yourself.
Yeah, with getting like things like retro games online, and there's the lack of knowledge for how to do it. It's not the lack of knowledge; it's the lack of resources to do it.
Mhm.
Most games now do like servers where they've got dedicated servers to it. These old retro games were not designed for that, and there's no place that will dedicate money to that.
Mhm.
To have a server that's up, to have these games hosted, and that way both people can sign into the server and play the games remotely. So you have
Mhm.
to do what's called peer to peer, where like one person hosts it and the other one just like kind of gets the stream from that person.
Mhm.
The the reason why I wanted to talk about this was because there is very little knowledge on it out there that's accessible for people like you who don't know what's going on with like retro networking and stuff like that. I think I think it makes it really difficult for people to get back into like old school gaming when the information you're looking for is normally like non-existent, or you wouldn't even know how to look it up,
Mhm.
because net play is extremely difficult to set up if you have no idea what you're doing. But then there's programs like Parsec where they make it as easy as you can possibly think of, but
Mhm.
no one knows about it. Like I talked about Parsec with the Dark Mode podcast's co-host Taylor. Me and him are really close friends. Uh, we are talking about that because his girlfriend moved overseas and he wants to play games with her. And I'm like, you can do Parsec, and he had no idea what this is. And his whole podcast is about technology and all this cool stuff that comes out, and he doesn't even know about this.
Mhm.
For him to have this under his radar, that just goes to show that there are so many things in the vintage game community that
Mhm.
people don't even know exist, and
Yeah.
that's my one thing is like, as much as I love old school gaming, it's very hard, I think, for people who aren't into it to get into
Mhm.
it, because you
Yeah.
have to come in and learn all this stuff as you go, unless you have
Mhm.
someone who can teach you it, But I mean, for you, for instance, when we played it on the Switch, that was seamless, right?
Absolutely. It was just boot it up, turn it on, and look for a friend, and they found the game instantly. It was like I think from time to turn on the Switch to the time we were actually playing it was like 30 seconds maximum.
Mhm. And that's what
It's
I think
pretty.
there should be more of, honestly. I think it should be if you can get to that point where you can do every
Mhm.
game that way remotely, you're set, you're fine. But it's not to that point yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a shame. I think Nintendo has a great chance. I mean, if you look at the if you go on the Switch, and for anybody who has one, there is two different things on there that people don't know about. And this is a point to you. You made me understand there was another platform on there I was missing. So when you go to the Switch, when you go to the Nintendo shop, you can download the Nintendo NES online. There's also a Super NES online as well. So there's two different online platforms of classic games. And so when I downloaded that, it's just like mind blowing that there was a second one I didn't even know about on the Switch itself. And of course, you have to have the Nintendo Online to play it. So, it is a little bit of a curve to get it set up. And it's just real simple. You pay monthly for it. And to me, it's a really stable service. I really enjoy it.
Mhm.
And so when you get that set up and you go to the NES Online, you can search for people playing and or search for a friend and you can play with someone or you can just play by yourself and it curtails it to two-player games. And so for me, that was like eye-opening that hey, there is a platform that's mainstream and it's not all the games. They don't have the infinite Nintendo library, which is a disappointment, but
Mhm.
in a perfect world, there would be this beautiful platform where there's everything up for grabs and you can just play it and pay for it if you want to. And you have it in your library like some of the storefronts do. But for me, the Switch Online, the two services for regular Nintendo and Super Nintendo, you have all those games that are from usually a lot of them are the launch titles that came with the games. And so getting to play those is like, whoa. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of stuff on there I never even touched. I mean, it's crazy. So
Mhm.
I think if they build on that and they have this one super platform, like say Sony, they would be so smart to do this, where they would take all of their games and have them on a library. Not PlayStation Now. That's my opinion. PlayStation Now is a flop. It's garbage. But if they had a library where you could just play all the classic games throughout the entire history and just download them, play them, and if of course it's a streaming service, so they'll probably charge you something for it. But
Mhm.
if they really fine tune that and did that well, I think that would be amazing because I think that's all I would play is just going back through history and playing all the games that I didn't get to play.
Mhm.
And I think Nintendo is doing an awesome job at that. However, it's kind of limited and there isn't a lot of variety. And honestly, for an outsider who doesn't really know about video games, it's really not that appealing,
Mhm.
some of those titles. So it's like, what do you do? But for me, it's like, whoa, nostalgia is playing something I haven't played before. Okay, let's do it. Let's boot it up. Let's play it. And I think that's where the retro online it's a great thing.
Mhm.
It's mind blowing the scope of it, of the potential. And on the PC, the potential is endless through emulators, downloads, things like that.
Mhm.
It's just very difficult to get set up, and I think that's why people are reluctant to want to do it is because they don't really know about it, and it involves a lot of tinkering on the back end of it to get it to work. And what do you do? So
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with you on there where it's like at retro games, it's too it's too inaccessible for
hmm
everyone to be compelled to go play it. I think if it was more like the Nintendo Online where they have it for the Switch, where it's like the SNES and the NES, I think you'd get a lot more people playing those games. I think you'd get a lot more people coming back if it was
hmm
easily acceptable versus having to open up my ports and stuff like that and do all this
yeah,
stuff through RetroArch. But I mean, it's a shame, and hopefully something comes around in the future that allows you to do it. I think
yeah.
RetroArch coming to Steam is going to open up a lot of people's eyes to it. RetroArch's not over at Steam yet, but it's coming really soon.
Hmm.
And when that is official, I think you will have a lot less people going, I don't necessarily want that program on my computer. It's not safe. But when Steam approves it, they'll be like, oh, it's a Steam approved app, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Becomes
So
more mainstream. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's kind of the big thing right now is that people don't have a uniform platform to go to and a uniform way to do it. There's so many
hmm
different ways you can do it, and it's just the unfortunate side of things when it comes to retro, uh, not retro, old school gaming. I keep on using that word wrong. I gotta stop. I gotta fix that. It's super hard to do that. Um, But I mean, any closing thoughts here on the topic? I mean, we talked about a lot today. You know,
We
and we
did
kind
talk
of
a
went
lot.
off on a
We talked
tangent
about a
with
lot.
the save point, honestly, but it was
Well,
something
that's
good to
okay.
talk about. And we
Yeah.
appreciate that comment from Thomas that kind of opened our eyes to some things.
Well, it gives us a chance to bring that energy because see that's the thing. Each podcast, there's so many other things you want to talk about, and you got to kind of condense it down into 1 hour for viewing. You know, so you guys aren't listening to us for 5 hours at a time, going, "Oh my god," you know.
Shut up.
Um,
Yeah.
so I like to bring the energy. I like to think I bring that to the table, and
Mhm.
the save points are great. I mean, it gives us an opportunity to talk about and expand on what people's thoughts are, and you know, like when doing the streaming, you know, it's a great thing to do. I'm very active with chat. I mean, and I'll answer anything and I'll talk about anything. There's no limits to what I'll talk about.
Mhm.
So I think this platform gives us a great open book source to just say, hey, this is us, this is what we're about, and you know, I don't. Hey, if we go off on a tangent, baby, that's how we roll. That's how it is. We're not trying to be put in a box, put in a label, put it in a corner. This is what we do. We're just two guys sitting around talking, having
Mhm.
fun doing it, and you know, wherever it goes, it goes.
Yeah.
That's how I roll.
Yeah. We appreciate all the comments and the feedback that you guys have given us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it helps a lot. And the save point I really like because we have like a topic like sports games and like the evolution of that, and then like retro playing games or vintage playing games, I guess. And then like that save point allows us to break away from a topic that's completely different, you know,
Yep.
because that's what you guys want to talk about, or that's what you guys want to have your input on in the conversation. And we really do appreciate that because it keeps it interactive with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys would like to be part of the action, though, you guys can always reach out to us on our Discord channel. You can comment on the YouTube video. You can comment on Podbean. Tweet at us with the hashtag DiscToDigital. And you can also go right to the website, discdigital.net, and you can actually go down to the bottom of the homepage, or you can actually go on the episodes and comment on a particular episode if you desired. And we'll have links for all that in the description as well for you. But other than that, I mean, I think closing up here, I got nothing else to say, man, unless you do.
No, I think we exhausted it on this one.
Yeah, we had a great time talking with you guys today, and we will see you guys back in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Stay safe.